FCW's Roman Reigns. New moniker, new character persona, trying out, really extension of himself. And out the family history, and we mentioned before about so many members of different families, Ortons, Rhodes, DiBiase's, Harts, Guerreros, it just goes on and on and on. Is there good competition between the families of the wrestlers?
Sure. Well, not only competition, but I'd say, just a common bond. I mean, there's things that we went through as children, when your parents are on the road so many, 200, 250 days out of the year. That's something that some people don't understand. A lot of times people will think that a generational guy has been privileged, but they don't really understand. I didn't see my dad. He was on the road a good bit, and it was all, for proper doing. He was out there, earning money to provide for us. But
so you may have to miss a lot of events, and I've talked to others too,
yeah.
that's what happens and all. They might be on the phone, hey, how did it go at your game? How did school go, or something like that? But they're on the road so much. As a kid, though, how do you try to handle that? I'm sure there had to be tough moments. It's natural.
Yeah, I mean, and especially being a boy, you want to be with your dad. But luckily for me, I just had the strongest mother in the world. I mean, I know everyone will say my mom's the best mom in the world, but my mom was like a backbone for our family, and she was always there. She was just as consistent as you can be. She took us to practice. She took us to school. She fed us, helped us with our homework. Anything that we needed, my mom she took care of it, and our dad he was a general in wrestling, but my mom was the general of our household, so just having her being as strong a woman as she was, it made things a lot easier. But that's just one thing, that generational guys and girls, we can kind of sympathize with each other because we get it, what I mean? Like, there's ups and downs to everything, but fortunately in this business, we've experienced them, we've seen where things have gone right and wrong, so it's kind of, where you learn from mistakes and you don't want to make the same ones. But, me being 27, back when my dad was on the road, we didn't have webcam, we didn't have, all the different, media lines that we have nowadays. So for me to be in contact with my family will be a lot easier. We have a webcam, we have, text messaging and phone, cell phones. So back then it was a little bit different, but nowadays we have the advantage to stay closer. And even though we're across country, you're one phone call away. You can hold your cell phone and you're right there talking to your daughter. So it's a little bit different game nowadays.
You're in Tampa now because that's where the training headquarters is. Traveling throughout Florida. Is the family in Pensacola or no?
Well, as far as my family, my daughter and fiance, we're in Tampa, but pretty much the rest of my immediate family, my mother, my dad, my sisters, they're in Pensacola, and then my brother's in Cincinnati. So
you get to see your wife and your daughter, or your fiance and your daughter, sorry, your fiance and daughter and all. So that makes it a little easier, but if ever the day comes you get the call, then you're going to be traveling just about everywhere, around the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good thing about being here in the Tampa developmental system is every day I get to see my family. Days like this, we're driving 2.5, 3 hours. We perform at the show, and then I'll get home late night, but I'll be able to come home to my family. So it's a blessing of God to be able to do that and provide. To be able to provide for your family this way, have fun, entertain people, put a smile on people's faces. You can't. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better life than I have. So when the date comes, hopefully, sooner than later, where I get caught up on the road. Are
you anxious, or no? You're still testing the waters and all?
No, I'm ready. I mean, I'm completely ready. They give me an opportunity, I'm gonna hit my head on the goalpost. I know it. I'm ready to rock and roll. So the moment they release me, then big things are going to happen. So, and when it's my time, it's my time. But being away from my family, it's something we're prepared for. It's all for the right doing. I'm going out for business. I'm going out to make a life for my family, to make a mark on this industry, and hopefully make a big name for myself, to do positive and be a role model in this world that we live in. So, being away from my family, that's a negative, but all the all the positive things that it's going to bring is just, it's going to overlap any negative you could possibly think of.
Actually, obviously, you have to make a living. Everyone have to make a living. It's important, obviously. The WWE especially does a lot of community service, a lot of charity work, a lot of things are involved with the bully program, Be a Star, anti-bullying, and Make-A-Wish. There's tons of things, reading programs that they do that everyone gets involved in. And social media has been tremendous, and they're doing things with that as well. This, with FCW, it's more like territory days.
Yeah.
You're driving around the state, if that's your state, and then you're able to go home at nights, late night, and things like that. Would your father or uncle ever tell you about the territory days, or was that something that was even before them?
No, they were right there in the middle of the territory days. So they, you know, and I think a big run that my dad used to do with my uncle, and I think even Hulk Hogan, you know, did some of these loops with them as well, is they'd go, that's how we ended up in Pensacola, is they would work in Pensacola down the Panhandle and then go up into Alabama. So that was a territory they were running back in the day. But back then, you know, everything was just so mysterious and mystique, and they just, you didn't want to tell, you know, like a magician, you just don't tell your tricks, you keep all the strings covered, and you just didn't, you know, you didn't really talk about it too often. And half the time when he was in town, he'd be tired, and it just, you know, we'd spend as much quality family time together and not really worry about wrestling, you know, per se. So.
Did Dad ever come and get to see you watch you play college ball?
Oh yeah, he was there. I mean, by that time he was retired. Yeah.
Okay.
So he and my mom and my sisters, they were there just about every home game, or anytime we played close, like Auburn. They were there, so I was very blessed to have their support and have them there every time.
Did anybody recognize them? Recognize your dad and all?
You know, especially for him, because you know he was real popular in the late '70s. So, you know, you'll have your wrestling fan here and there, but them being the bad guys per se, you know, it wouldn't be if you had like the American Dream running around. People just, you know, especially in this area, love them. So.
Well, maybe they were like afraid. They sort of like
sometimes, yeah. I mean, and he's still a big man, so he still carries that demeanor of, man, look at that guy. He's a big guy, you know. And if you shake his hand, he's really one of the only men I shake their hands, and his hands are bigger than mine. So but yeah, he's still very recognizable in the world of wrestling.
Last two questions. I got to ask you about your teammates and taking your roommate or anyone to a wrestling match, and what it was like for you to take someone, whether it be in high school or college, to a wrestling match and maybe get to meet some of the wrestlers, and just because it's different through their eyes than through your eyes, and were you sort of like laughing at them, or in a nice way? But
well, because it's just a different world, you know, when you come in and you see all these guys running around and they're in little underwear, you know, and we're used to being in either workout gear or full suited up football pads. But it was something they all enjoyed. I mean, I took my roommates a couple times. I sent a couple of our strength coaches at Tech to a show. So it's something that they really did respect it, the process, you know, just being backstage, seeing the whole arena, seeing how much really goes into, you know, putting on an event for the fans. So it was a good time for everybody, and they just really enjoyed it. So. Do
you remember if they really went nuts for anybody in particular at that time, or no?
I can't remember. I'm sure just probably the Divas. To be honest. They probably went nuts for the Divas. Trish Stratus probably ran out and they were loving her. Is probably what happened. But it was just, I mean, usually you go to a show and you're gonna find something that you enjoy. You may not be into this guy, but then you see this guy come out and he's just right up your alley. So that's a great thing about what we do is, you know, the little kids might like him, the grown men might like him, the women might love her. So, you know what I mean?
You got something for everybody.
Exactly. It's a show for, you know, all groups and sizes and ages. So it's a good deal.
Did you ever get to meet Mr. McMahon?
Yeah.
Did he ever, I don't know at what age, because I'm wondering if you were older.
Yeah, I was young.
Oh, see, because I wonder if he was older and said, this might be someone someday to keep an eye on because of the size.
I wasn't able to meet him, you know, when I was in college, but I was able to meet, you know, a lot of the, you know, the
others that work for him?
guys, you know, Jim Ross, guys that he works exclusively with. So I actually heard a rumor that they wanted to sign me right out of college to a developmental deal, but I was still in the process of figuring out if I, you know, how pro ball was going to go and things like that. But yeah, it was, you know, I met him when I was young, and I plan on doing a bunch of business with him throughout the future. So.
Last question. So much time. Thank you so much. The guys that are working here, what a tremendous, not only the talent, but also those training the talent and working with the talent. Dusty Rhodes, Steve Kern, Norman Smiley, Ricky Steamboat. I think Jerry Briscoe comes out every once in a while when he can.
We have Bill DeMott, Terry
Thank you,
Taylor,
Bill DeMott. Terry Taylor.
Joey Mercury.
Joey Mercury, I remember. Eminem.
Even before Tom Pritchard. So we've just had so much experience, so many guys who worked, you know, we talk about Steve Kern, he worked back in the day. Dusty, they did the territory days. And
Florida,
they
right.
just experienced so much and seen, you know, that's one thing you can't substitute is experience. You know, you can be the most talented, charismatic person in the world, but if you've just never been put in a situation, you really don't know how a guy's going to respond. So to be able to absorb all their knowledge is just, it's been a blessing. It really has.
Thank you for spending so much time with us.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate that so much. All the best for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
How did you get started with pro wrestling? And if you could talk a little bit about the history of the family in pro wrestling.
Sure. Well, you know, from the time I was a little kid, like you said, my father is Sika of the Wild Samoans. My uncle is Afa. And then from there, there's just I have so many cousins. Yokozuna, Samu, Rikishi, who was also Fatu with the Head Shrinkers. My brother was Rosie with 3 Minute Warning and also Superhero in Training. Umaga, who was his tag team partner, is Jamal. And then, you know, he had a singles, you know, a really legitimate singles run as Umaga. And then also, you know, extended through the family is The Rock and Peter Maivia and The Rock's father as well, Rocky Johnson. So it's always been something that has been in my family. It's been a part of me since I can remember, you know. So being, you know, having a wrestling ring in the backyard has been something that was just a part of my life, you know. So a lot of kids have pools or playgrounds. We had a wrestling ring. So it, you know, and from the time when I was a little boy all the way up until I started playing football. Once I started playing football and realized that, you know, in high school I was going to be able to have a good shot at playing college football, and it actually did happen. I was able to attend Georgia Tech on a full ride. Wrestling was my dream. That's something I wanted to do the whole time. But, you know, as it was, football became a big passion, and it was something that I was able to, you know, have fun and get a free education for. So that kind of took over really from 2003 to 2006. And then, you know, once football was kind of winding down, the reality of, you know, coming back to wrestling, my original dream was starting to set in. I had a bunch of long talks with my father, Sika, and he gave me the green light, you know, he gave me his blessing, and from there on, I trained with him a little bit, and then he was able to contact the office and get me a tryout, and from there it's history. You know, I've been here since.
When you were playing at Georgia Tech, you were a Yellow Jacket. How far did it go for you there? And were there aspirations to go on, whether even be CFL, if not the NFL?
Well, yeah, I got there in 2003. As a freshman, I was a you know, a little bit smaller than I am now. But I played defensive end, and as soon as I got there, I caught on pretty quickly, and I was able to play right away as a true freshman.
Quick defensive end?
Yeah.
Were you quick, agile defensive? Because if you don't mind, what were your dimensions about then? You were younger.
About 6'3", 6'4", 250 at the time. So, you know,
were you going up against guys? Did you find yourself having to use more of that speed and agility to get around them?
Well, that's how I kind of got on the field, was more in a third down nickel passing situation. So I was able to rush the passer pretty well at that time. So that gave me the opportunity to get in the game and actually contribute a bit. And then once we got into spring ball my freshman year, that's, excuse me, I was able to put on a little bit of weight and really learn the defense and the system, and really had, you know, settle in as a defensive lineman, learn how to use my hands and things like that. So once I was able to put on a little bit of weight, that's when I kind of found my niche at defensive tackle. Still being kind of a quicker, athletic guy, but I mean, all the way up until my senior year, I was able to put on enough weight to be around 300 pounds. So by the time I was done at Tech, I was a legitimate defensive tackle and was able to hold my own and, you know, make some good plays there.
Were there any big games, big moments for you playing or being a part of it that you really enjoyed and got out of it?
Absolutely. I mean, every single year, even, and it's funny because the game that sticks out the most to me is a game I didn't play a snap in. It was my freshman year. It was the year after Auburn. I think they shared a national championship. They had Cadillac and Ronnie Brown at running back.
Ronnie Brown, you played with the Dolphins a little bit.
Yeah. They came to Tech that first year, my freshman year, and we ended up beating them, I think, like 13-7, and they were, I want to say they were number 3 in the nation. They had a really high ranking.
They were good, and because you said that, I remember that because out of the draft, they were talking about Ronnie and Cadillac saying, okay, can these guys handle it all? They're great backs, but can they handle it on their own if they had to do like an every down, get the ball type of back and all? So putting that two-headed monster on that team, and you guys were able to beat that team.
Yeah, we handled them that day, and I don't know if it was just our day or what, but we ended up winning that game, and it was really neat because, you know, if you're a football fan, especially in the college game, you always see the goalposts come down. And the one thing that was really neat that day is, you know, us beating them at home, our goalposts came down and they ended up cutting them up, all the fans, and passing them out. But just to be able to see the goalposts come down was great.
Did you want a piece of the goalpost?
I did, yeah. and it's cool because that was a big moment, but also like, I want to say my junior year, we went to Auburn and played at their place, and I had a really good game. I had like 2 or 3 tackles for losses, a sack and a half. You know, I had a really monster game.
Yeah, for a defensive lineman, that's a huge game right there.
And our whole team, we played a really well-rounded, great game that night. And you know, a lot of times when you go to the SEC stadiums, they have the hedges all around the stadium, right there on the sidelines. So.
I remember, I'll tell you this, I remember South Carolina. I don't know if you ever got to go to South Carolina.
No,
I mean,
we never played at South
Oh, well, they're right there in the end zone.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans are right there with the hedges, and you're right on the field.
Yeah, and if you're able to go in there into an SEC school and get a win, that's cool. You just take a little piece of the hedge, and it's a nice little keepsake. So it was nice to do that night.
So you got a few hedges?
Yeah, it was a good deal that night because really Auburn, even I think when
that was a big team to play. I would think, tell me if I'm wrong, I would think Georgia would be a big rival team, but Auburn more than Georgia? No, both are.
Georgia. I mean, unfortunately for me, I never was able to beat Georgia,
but that's the big because of the state, interstate.
Georgia, nothing took that. That was the big game every year, and.
But Auburn was a big game as well.
Yeah, every time we played them, it just seemed like they were really highly ranked, and they just had a really well-rounded team each year, but somehow we pulled it out. You know what I mean? I don't know how we did it. We just did it. Played good defense and kept the ball.
Did you have the aspirations to go on after that, or did you know at the end of college, okay, that was it for me, no NFL, no CFL, no anything like that?
No, I did a brief stint in the NFL. I did a rookie camp with Minnesota, and then I had some medical complications and things like that. And then I did a year in Canada with Edmonton Eskimos. So I was able to go up there and play a year. But by that time, the passion for the game was kind of wearing out.
It gets to you. I remember speaking many years ago with The Rock, and he mentioned he played a little CFL ball too, but he played so long, he's done so much that it was like, maybe I should do something else now.
Yeah, it was a great time. I mean, I couldn't imagine my life without having those years playing football, but at the time when I went up to Edmonton, I had just had my daughter who, and she's just a little baby, and I was all the way across the country, above the border. So
at the time, were you in Pennsylvania or no? Were you living in Pennsylvania or no? I meant when you were in Edmonton. Florida. Oh, see, no, that I didn't even know.
Yeah, Pensacola, Florida.
Pensacola
but at the
area.
time, I was still living in Atlanta. So at that time, being that far away from my family and just the difference between the American game and the Canadian game, it just really wasn't for me at that point anymore. And it was one of those things where I could have maybe tried to keep training and pursuing and hopefully get a call, but instead of sitting around waiting for a call, I knew, I had a direct lifeline to this business, and it was just something that I knew I had. I mean, even before I started playing football, I wanted to be significant one way or another. I didn't know if it was wrestling, football, anything. It could have been anything. I just wanted to be somebody that people recognized and knew. And by the time I was done playing football, I knew wrestling was the avenue that I needed to take. I needed to go down that road and try it.
you had a way to get your foot in the door, but you got to keep your foot in the door and get your whole body in the door. So just discuss a little bit about, hey, yeah, I have a little bit of advantage over some others, but you still got to do it. It's up to you.
Well, to be honest, I don't really, I had the contacts to be able to get into the business, but as far as an advantage, the only advantage I really felt like I had was the athleticism that my family passed on to me. But once you get here in the system, talent just is gonna thrive. You can know whoever you want, but if you can't get in the ring and back it up, if you don't have the look, you can't talk, you can't walk the walk, then it's kind of uphill battle. So once you get here,
it's up to you.
Yeah, and you're competing against a bunch of guys who have been doing this, and some of them, this was the only thing they've ever dreamed of doing. So, even if you did have aspirations to do this, but your life took a different turn down the road, and you did this for a little while, but now you're back here. I mean, I was away from this. I spent 8, 9, 10 years developing football skills, which for me, I'm able to translate it to the ring, and the physicality, the work ethic, the agility, things like that.
You utilized what you learned and did in football into pro
just
wrestling.
The attitude, just the swagger that I was able to carry into this. Being confident in myself to be a good athlete, to be a leader. I mean, that's what all these guys are. We're all leaders. We're just all together now.
Do you think it helped playing Division I football or no? What I mean by that is Division I, Division II, Division III, NAI, junior college, that because you were playing in front of so many people, because those crowds must have been tens of thousands, am I right? I mean, some of those SEC games.
Yeah, I've played in front of 90,000 people, 87,000 people at Auburn, I think it was. Tech, we held 55.
Does that play any role in this, or no, different thing?
It's a little bit different. I don't get nervous being in front of people. It's not something, public speaking isn't a problem for me.
But it wasn't because of that. It wasn't because of playing in front of 90,000 people.
I think I can't speak as far as not being Division I was in a big program. Georgia Tech is a very old and prestigious program, and just to be in that atmosphere and to be held at the standard, having to go to classes every single day, and they're not easy. I know, most colleges aren't, but Tech is an institute, and it's not an easy deal. Just to get into that school is not easy. So being held at that standard, and then to be able to achieve, what I was able to do at Tech, and the football atmosphere, to be a team captain, to be a leader, to be an all-ACC performer, I think that gave me a big advantage dealing with the personalities that you deal with, and just holding yourself true to who you really are.
Did you get your degree?
No, I haven't.
Do you still have how many more credits or classes to go?
Yeah, I have a full calendar year, but I stopped taking classes in order to train for the draft and the combine and things like that, so I wasn't able to complete my degree, and with the scheduling of football and spring ball, it's really hard to do it in four years, so it's something that I'm going to be looking forward to going back once I'm done here, and in this part of my life, it'll be something I can go back and.
But this is your part of your life right now. You have your family and you have the wrestling. So down the road, whenever that is, that could be something to look for then. You could even do it online. I know people are doing classes online, and to have that and all, but at least you only have just 1 year to go for that as well. So some of you do. What did you major in?
Business management.
So it was business, and you could use some of the skills for business management in anything really, and especially if you're individually doing something like this.
Sure.
Best advice Dad has ever given you? Is there something that stands out for you? I'm sure he's probably said a few things.
Tons of things. Him along with my brother and so many other family members, but it's just to remember it's a business, to be yourself. Because, I was raised properly. I was taught respect and to hold morals true. And, no matter where I go in the world, I'm always going to be who I am and where I'm from. And it's a business. Everything we do, it is about money, so just stay true to yourself and just be the man that I was taught to be and I was raised to be.
Did you ever get to see your dad wrestle?
Yeah.
When you saw him wrestle, what was that like? And I guess seeing both of them wrestle as the Wild Samoans.
Yeah. Well, it was later in their run, and even as my dad competed as singles as well in his last run with the company back before it went to WWE. But it was, I mean, you know, just being within the world of wrestling and knowing it as sports entertainment, it was different. But to see, because you know my family background is, you know, Samoans, savages, so it was people don't realize, but you know, these guys who are considered bad guys, they have a family. You know, he had a son watching them, and you hear people screaming at your father, you know, crazy stuff, but you know, at the end of the day, he's your dad, so you're gonna love him no matter what. And you know, he's out there doing it for you know, for our family and to feed us and, you know, keep a roof over our heads. So.
But do you say to him, Dad, why do they keep yelling at you? Or
Sure.
or you sort of know, even though, or you're like, or he has to explain to you, look, if they yell at me, that's good. They're supposed to do that. Don't worry about it. And you're like, you know, why is that guy yelling, or why is this one yelling?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the first couple of times, but after that, you just kind of come to realize that this is just, that's the role. That's just the way it is, you know?
Did you ever yell just then? Then you were like, let me yell too then.
Most of the times they keep me away from the crowd. I'd be in the back usually, but it's when they're not yelling, it's when they're quiet, sitting on their hands is when you have to worry. So if they're stirring up a reaction, then you can really, you don't have to be concerned if they are reacting, so.
Also, with the other family members and all, it's just such family business. You take a different look at it because so many family members have been involved with it. Is it hard to be a fan of it? Or no, not at all. Not at all. Because you know it's a business.
Yeah.
But it's also a passion.
Well, I like to think we're, you know, anyone you talk to here today or within I think we're all fans. You know, that's how it, you know, really striked our interest is, whoa, man, look at that. That's pretty neat. Like, how did he do that? What? That's a cool story. That, you know, I enjoy watching this guy. So I think we're all fans in a sense. But for me personally, being in a very prestigious wrestling family, every day when I come into an arena or go to practice or I'm training, I don't just do it for myself. It's, you know, I'm representing a full bloodline, a bloodline that has multiple Hall of Famers. So it's not just myself that I'm trying to be successful for. It's not only, you know, my dad, my uncle, and all my cousins and brother, but my daughter and my fiance. So you know, it is a little bit of pressure, but it's a good pressure. It's something that you, as a man, you can stand up and you want to take the challenge. And not only that, I want to be better than all my family. You know, I want, when my run's done, I want people to be like, man, he represented. He did his thing, and we know him for being who he is. He didn't just get in there because of his family. He brought something and he left a mark on this business, so that's my goal. That's
so important too, because you have that respect factor.
Absolutely.
And wanting to carry on tradition and do better, which is a good thing to want to do better. You should want to do better. We've seen so many family members from other families get involved in the business, and it's changed so much. No disrespect at all intended, but I don't know if a Wild Samoan gimmick, how that would have worked today. Just because it seems like it's everyone's using names rather than gimmicky type names and things like that. Maybe it would have worked, but with different names or doing something different. But it's changed so much from then and all. Do you look at it that way, that it's changed so much, at least what we see in the ring?
Well, yeah, it's really reality based now, you know. And I've even heard people use this era that we're in now as a reality era, which is really neat because with all the social media, it's almost like people can be within the backstage, you know, through internet and just things like that. But as far as, you know, the Samoan gimmick or anything like that, Umaga was kind of a...
Umaga was, you know what, that's a good point that you make. That's a really good point you make, because he was in high spots, right.
He was a top guy, he was doing his thing, and he represented our family, to the fullest. So I think it's just on the personality of the individual. Myself, I don't know if it would work for me. You know, I think I can go out there and show aggressiveness, but just automatically, if you go online or Google me, you're going to know that I went to Georgia Tech.